Okay, so remember, anytime we start new notes, always start on a blank page. It can be the back, but your heading for the notes should always be at the top. So it needs to be a blank page. Jeremiah, when I am talking, you are not. So yesterday we looked at writing a decimal as a fraction. Okay, whether it was just a decimal smaller than 1 or whether it was, bless you, a mixed number. And you simply just had to be able to read the decimal. If you could read the decimal, you could write it as a fraction. So today, we're doing the opposite of that. Writing a fraction as a decimal, okay? Still the same standard. So for this week and next week, your standard, basically summarized, is whether you are given a fraction, a decimal, or a percent, you will be able to switch to the other two types of numbers. So if you're given a fraction, you'll be able to change it to a decimal or percent. If you're given a decimal, you'll be able to change it to a fraction or a percent. Or if you're given a percent, which is what we'll look at tomorrow, you'll be able to change it to a decimal or a fraction. Okay? Switching between all three of those no matter which form you're given. So today we're looking at fractions to decimals. Some of us need to come in and get set. That way when it's time to go, we're not still trying to figure things out. Our notebooks should already be open and ready to go. So to write a fraction as a decimal, you are going to divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, so it's just simply division. Anytime you have a fraction and want to change it to a decimal, you're using division. You're dividing the numerator by the denominator. Okay, so I want to take a look at a fraction, because if we're still not sure when we look at a fraction, which number is the numerator and which number is the denominator, then we're going to be a little bit confused. So when you have a fraction, is the top or the bottom number the numerator? Anisha? The top one. Then obviously the denominator would be, Aubrey? The bottom. So denominator is down, okay? So anytime you have a fraction, your top number is your numerator, bottom number is your denominator. So if we are dividing the numerator by the denominator, which number goes on the inside to become our dividend? If we are dividing the numerator by the denominator, which number goes on the inside to become our dividend? Jeremiah? The numerator. Absolutely. Then your denominator becomes your divisor. Okay? Now, just like most things in math, there will always be a special case that you need to pay attention to. Okay? So, if your fraction is a whole number or a mixed number, if your fraction is a mixed number, the whole number of your fraction becomes the whole number of your decimal. Bless you. Okay, so again, if your fraction is a mixed number, the whole number of your fraction becomes the whole number of your decimal. And that'll make sense as we do our examples. Okay, so to go through 4 different examples with this. If I have the fraction 3/5, okay, we will eventually know how to change it to a decimal, which is what we're doing today, and then to a percent, which is what we're doing tomorrow. So to change it to a decimal, you are dividing the numerator by the denominator. So it's simply just a division problem. If our numerator is going on the inside, which number is going on the inside of this division? Alicia? The 3, absolutely. And then your denominator becomes your divisor. Now, if it is just a fraction and not a mixed number, a fraction means it is smaller than 0. So therefore, your divisor will never go into your dividend. So that's going to be a 0. Then, what do we do so that we can finish this division problem? Kaylee? Yes. Most importantly was the first thing she said to add. You have to add a decimal before you add the 0. You can't just make this number 30. It has to stay 3. So therefore, you have to add a decimal before you add the 0. And then the decimal comes straight up into your answer. So then how many times does 5 go into 30? Anicia? Yes. And 5 times 6 gives us 30. So we're all done with that division problem. So 3/5 is equal to 6/10. You have to have the 0 before the decimal point. Okay? So that is 3/5 as a decimal, 6/10. Simply by just taking the numerator 3, dividing it by the denominator 5. Questions on that one? All right. Another fraction. If I have 14/25, again, it's less than 0 or less than 1 because it's a fraction. So we're going to divide. Which number goes on the inside? If I'm taking numerator divided by denominator, which number is going on the inside? Abrienne? The 14, absolutely. And then your 25 goes on the outside, okay? Again, this is a fraction, meaning less than 1. Therefore, your divisor is not going to go into your dividend. You have to have the 0. Like Kaylee told us, we have to add a decimal point before we can add a 0, and the decimal point comes straight up into our answer. Now, you may have to add more than 1 0, but you won't really know that until you actually start dividing. You will not have remainders. You have to add zeros until you've divided out all the way, okay? So, we're taking 25 into 140. Anytime I see 25, I always think of quarters because I can usually add quarters pretty quickly if I think of them as money. So if I have 25 cents, how many quarters would go into 140 or $1.40 without going over? Anicia, let's try that. So if we take 25 times 5, we get 25, 10, so 125. Okay? If you add 25 more, that's too much. So it would go 5 times, subtracting 125. This is just normal division that we've been doing the last several weeks. 10 minus 5 and 3 minus 2. Then we cannot have a remainder. So you're going to add another 0 and bring it down. So now we're taking 25 into 150 or a quarter into $1.50. Isaiah? You would need 6 of those. Okay, 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 2 would give you 12 plus the 3 you carried gives you 150. So 14/25 as a decimal is 56 hundredths. 0.56. Not 0.56, 0.56. Numerator divided by denominator. It's just division. Questions? All right, one more like that, and then we'll do one with a mixed number. Number 3, if I have the fraction 102 250ths. It's going to be division. Numerator divided by denominator. Which number goes on the inside becoming our dividend? Alicia? 102. So our denominator 250 becomes our divisor. 250 will not go into 102, so I need a 0. Okay. We're adding a decimal point and a 0 and bringing our decimal point straight up into our answer. So now we are taking 250 into 1,020. Again, thinking of best ways to get a guesstimate. How many times would 200 go into 1,000? We're just kind of rounding those. Jeremiah? Let's try it. So if we take 200, actually it's 250, so we'll do that one. 250 times 4, just to see how close we are. We would get 20, so we get 1,000. Okay, we need 1,020, so we can't add another 250. So we go in 4 times. When we subtract, we get 20. Can't have a remainder, so we're going to add a 0 and bring it down. Will 250 go into 200? No. And here's the mistake I saw often before. Since 250 does not go into 200, you have to put a 0 above that because it didn't go into it. Then you can add your other 0. So now we're taking 250 into 2,000. Here's what you need to think. If times 4 gave us 1,000, what do we need to multiply by to get 2,000? Okay, I'll say it again because some of you weren't listening. If 250 times 4 gave us 1,000, what would I need to multiply 250 by to get 2,000? Liana? Perfect, which would give us what? 8. Okay, so that's going to give you 2,000, and you're left with nothing. So 102 250ths is the same as 408 thousandths. Okay, that is changing a fraction to a decimal when they're just fractions, not mixed numbers. Gavin. Wait till I go over the next example and finish this. Sound good? Jeremiah. then there's too many kids in the hallway. And I want to prove them right now anyway, because I'm going through something. All right. Now, number 4 is different. This is a mixed number. So if you notice, 1, 2, and 3 were just fractions, numerator, denominator. Number 4 now we're looking at mixed numbers. So you've got a whole number and you've got a fraction. Anytime you have a mixed number and you're wanting to change it to a decimal, you're going to ignore the whole number to start with, and you're just dealing with the fraction. Now, we did do this one before if you were paying attention. So 3/5 we need to change to a decimal. Numerator divided by denominator. Which number is going on the inside? And we already did this once today. Anicia? The 3, which leaves a 5 on the outside. Since it's a fraction, your divisor is never going to go into your dividend. So that's a 0. This is the same problem Kaylee helped us with earlier. So we're going to add a decimal point and a 0, bring our decimal point straight up into the answer. So how many times will 5 go into 30? And you all should know because we already did this once. Some of us don't know because we're not paying attention. Elizabeth, 6 times, which gives you 30. Here's what you have to realize. That 6/10 only represents your fraction. So like I said up here, if your fraction is a mixed number, which this one was, the whole number of your fraction becomes the whole number of your decimal. So 14 3/5 would be 14. That stays the same. Your whole number, you don't do anything with it. Then you change your fraction to a decimal, which was 6/10. So 14 3/5 is the same as 14 6/10. Okay? Questions about that? Okay, so before we all start moving or trying to escape and go to the bathroom, what you are doing today, the assignment is all typed up in Canvas again. Some of you did not submit yesterday, so it's a 0 right now. Okay? Page 93, 1 through 4, 10, and 11, you were to submit that through the Canvas assignment, which you can get through the agenda or through Canvas assignments. Today, it's a new assignment in the agenda or in Canvas. You are doing page 93, 5 through 9. There's nothing to turn in to me because you're submitting all of it through Canvas. The questions are typed in the assignment, so you do not necessarily need to look in your book. You can if you want to, but you're not turning it in, okay? If you don't have a way to write on your screen, you're going to need your notebook to do your division. These all involve division. So you're 93, 5 through 9, either through Canvas assignments. Link, put your table all the way down, hun. Thank you. Either through Canvas assignments or through the agenda. When you finish page 93, 5 through 9, you need to make sure your IXLs for this week are done, F2 and F3, and I'll go over that list in a minute. Then you need to check and make sure you turned in yesterday's 93, 1 through 4, 10, and 11, because several of you did not. Okay, so 93, 5 through 9, IXL, F2, F3, and then make sure you turned in yesterday's assignment for 93. Any questions?